My friends, let us begin at the very beginning of this human drama. The moment you first began to construct the persona you wear today. The truth is, no one is born wearing a mask. The newborn enters the world as pure potential, unfiltered, unashamed, and unrestrained. But very quickly, the child learns that this pure self cannot exist freely without consequences. From the first moments of life, the world begins to shape us. Approval and disapproval become our compass, and we are taught, both explicitly and implicitly, that some parts of who we are acceptable and others are unacceptable. This is not malicious. It is a necessity of social existence. To survive, the infant must be accepted by those who feed, protect, and nurture them. The child who smiles and pleases receives warmth and affection. The child who rages, cries too long, or resists control is often met with punishment, withdrawal, or rejection. In those early years, acceptance equals survival. So the child begins to adapt. Each time we suppress a cry, hide our anger, or force ourselves to smile when we don't feel happy, we lay another brick in the wall of our persona. We learn that love is conditional, not on who we truly are, but on who we present ourselves to be. Slowly, we begin to trade pieces of authenticity for security. It is a fair trade for a helpless child who cannot survive alone, but it comes with a hidden cost. This persona, this social mask, becomes more sophisticated as we grow. In school, we learn which behaviors bring praise and which bring humiliation. We study our teachers' faces, our parents' moods, our friends' reactions, and we refine our persona to avoid pain and maximize belonging. Perhaps we become the good child who never causes trouble, or the achiever who earns worth through accomplishment, or the rebel who wears defiance as a shield against vulnerability. Each of these roles is a strategy, a brilliant, adaptive response to the conditions of life. But remember this, the persona you wear is not your true face. It is a carefully constructed farce designed to keep you safe. It allows you to function in society. Yes, to be liked, to be acceptable, to be rewarded. But beneath it, there remains the raw, authentic self that was present at birth, the self that was told to be quiet, to sit still, to behave, to be good. The persona gives order to the chaos of existence. It is a tool. But when you confuse the persona for who you are, you lose something vital. You lose the ability to feel fully, to express freely, to live as a whole human being. The tragedy is that most people never notice this happening. They grow up and carry the persona into adulthood as if it were their skin. They take jobs, build families, make choices, all while acting from behind the mask they built to survive. And yet, the authentic self never dies. It waits patiently beneath the surface, longing to be seen, heard, and allowed to live. It calls to you in moments of deep quiet, in sudden tears, in bursts of creativity you cannot explain. The persona may have been necessary once, but if you are to find the real you, you must dare to look beneath it. You must be willing to ask, who am I when no one is watching? Who was I before I was told who I must be? This is where the journey begins, with the courage to see that the persona is not you. It is only a role you have learned to play, and the moment you see that, the possibility of freedom is born. My dear friends, once the persona has been built and polished through years of conditioning, we step into the world convinced that this is who we are meant to be, and for a time it works. The persona earns us praise, belonging, acceptance. We are rewarded for our performance. But hidden beneath this surface success lies a dangerous and invisible cost, the slow erosion of our connection to the living core of who we truly are. The first price we pay is emotional disconnection. In order to keep the persona in place, we must suppress any feeling that threatens the image we have created. The person who must always appear strong learns to hide their fear, even from themselves. The one who must always be kind swallows their anger until it poisons them from within. Over time, we become numb. We stop knowing what we actually feel. because our emotions have been sorted into acceptable and unacceptable, and only the acceptable ones are allowed to surface. This creates an inner deadness, a sense that life has lost its vividness, as though we are watching it through glass. The second cost is chronic tension and exhaustion. Pretending to be what we are not is laborious work. It requires constant self-monitoring, watching what we say, how we say it, what we reveal, and what we hide. This inner policing consumes energy, leaving us depleted. Even when the world sees us as successful, accomplished, or admirable, we may find ourselves secretly fatigued, craving solitude just to take the persona off for a while. The third cost is alienation from our deepest desires. When we live for approval, our choices are no longer guided by what we truly want, but by what will maintain the image. We may choose careers that please our parents rather than feed our soul, stay in relationships that look good on the outside, but starve us on the inside, or silence our creative urges because they seem impractical. Eventually, we forget what we actually desire. We lose the inner compass that tells us what is right for us, and we drift through life like a ship without a rudder. The fourth and perhaps most tragic cost is the betrayal of the self. Each time we act against our truth to keep the persona intact, we send a message to our deeper being. You are not safe here. You must stay hidden. And so the authentic self retreats further into the shadows, watching silently as the persona takes over our life. We begin to feel like strangers to ourselves. We might achieve what the world calls success, but lie awake at night wondering why it feels so hollow. The persona was built to protect us, but by living behind it for too long, it becomes a prison. The very thing that kept us safe begins to suffocate us. This is why so many people experience a crisis of meaning. A sudden, painful realization that the life they are living does not belong to them. This moment, though terrifying, is sacred. It is the soul knocking on the door, demanding to be heard. My friends, pretending comes at a cost too high to pay forever. There comes a time when we must decide whether to keep feeding the persona or to turn toward the living truth that has been waiting all along. This decision is not easy, for it means risking disapproval, risking rejection, risking the loss of the identity we have carried for years. But the alternative is worse: to remain forever cut off from the essence of who we are, to live a life that is not truly ours. The price of pretending is nothing less than your own soul. And when you begin to feel the weight of this cost, you have already taken the first step toward freedom. Beneath the carefully constructed persona, beneath the polite smiles, the achievements, the roles we play, there lies another self, quiet, exiled, yet very much alive. This hidden self is not gone, it has simply been pushed out of sight, buried under years of conditioning and expectation. It carries within it everything that was once natural, spontaneous, and unfiltered in us: our original impulses, our true emotions, our instinctive wisdom. This hidden self often makes its presence known in subtle ways. Sometimes it comes to us in dreams, where we live out desires or express emotions we would never allow ourselves to in waking life. Sometimes it appears as a sudden surge of feeling, a flash of anger, a wave of sadness, an unexpected joy that surprises us with its intensity. Other times, it reveals itself through creative urges, through moments of deep silence, through longings we cannot quite name. Why does this self remain hidden? Because long ago, we learned that it was not safe to let it live openly. If we were too loud, we were told to be quiet. If we cried, we were told to stop. If we showed anger, we were punished or shamed. And so we began to hide the parts of ourselves that brought pain or disapproval. But hiding does not erase. It only forces these aspects into the unconscious, where they continue to exist, waiting for the day we are ready to meet them again. This hidden self is not merely a collection of repressed pain. It is also the repository of our greatest potential. Many of our most powerful qualities live in this underground chamber. The child who was too curious might have learned to silence their questions, burying their natural intelligence and hunger for truth. The young person who was deeply sensitive may have toughened themselves to survive, hiding away a gift for empathy that could one day help heal others. The one who was punished for being bold might have learned to shrink themselves, concealing a powerful leader within. This is why the work of uncovering the hidden self can be so transformative. Each piece of it we recover brings us closer to wholeness. Each forgotten part holds a fragment of our vitality, our creativity, our purpose. To deny it is to live with one hand tied behind our back, with one eye closed, with half of our soul asleep. But make no mistake, meeting this hidden self is not always comfortable. Often, the first things we find are the emotions we have worked hardest to avoid: grief, anger, fear, shame. These emotions can feel overwhelming at first because they have been locked away for so long. Yet, when we allow ourselves to feel them, we discover that they are not our enemies. They are messengers, carrying truths about our needs, our boundaries, our losses, and our desires. There is also joy hidden here, and passion and playfulness. There is a wildness, a freedom, a sense of being alive that many of us have not felt since childhood. And with it comes a new clarity about who we truly are and what we want from life. To reconnect with this hidden self is to open the door to your own unlived life. The possibilities you once abandoned, the dreams you left behind, the parts of you that you thought were gone forever. They are still there, waiting for you. And when you bring them back into the light, you begin to live not as a persona, but as a whole, integrated human being. There comes a moment, my friends, when the persona can no longer hold. For some, it happens suddenly. A single event, a collapse, a betrayal, a loss, and the illusion shatters all at once. For others, it happens slowly, like water wearing down stone, until one day they wake up and realize they can no longer pretend. This is the breaking point. The moment when the tension between the persona and the hidden self becomes unbearable. Up until this point, the persona has served us well. It has kept us safe, given us a place in society, allowed us to function in a world that demands conformity. But every day we live behind it, the hidden self grows restless. Its voice grows louder, first as a whisper, then as a murmur, until finally it becomes a roar that cannot be ignored. This breaking point often shows up as what we call a crisis of meaning. You may have experienced this yourself, the sense that something is deeply wrong, even though on the surface everything appears fine. You have the job, the relationship, the house, the achievements, and yet an emptiness gnaws at you. Life feels flat, mechanical, drained of vitality. You might catch yourself going through the motions, feeling as though you are watching your life rather than living it. For others, the breaking point comes as emotional collapse, depression that will not lift, anxiety that grows unbearable, anger that bursts out in destructive ways. These are not simply symptoms to be suppressed, they are signals. They are the hidden self pounding on the door, demanding to be let in. Sometimes the breaking point arrives through loss. The end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, the failure of a dream. These moments strip away the familiar structures we have clung to, forcing us to face ourselves. Without the usual distractions, we are left alone with the raw truth. The life we have built does not fully contain who we are. Though it feels like crisis, this moment is profoundly sacred. It is the call to awaken, the invitation to begin the work of becoming whole. The persona is cracking, not to destroy you, but to free you. The pain you feel is the pain of a too small identity breaking open so that something larger can emerge. But here lies the challenge. At the breaking point, many people panic. They double down on the persona, work harder to maintain appearances, numb themselves with distractions, addictions, or endless business. They fear what will happen if they let the persona fall. Will they be rejected? Will they lose everything? Will they even recognize themselves? Yet those who find the courage to face the breaking point, rather than flee from it, discover something extraordinary. They find that what is crumbling is not their true self, but only the false structures that were never truly theirs to begin with. And as those structures fall, they begin to feel an unfamiliar but powerful sensation, a glimmer of freedom, a taste of what it means to be fully alive. This breaking point is not the end of the journey, it is the threshold. It is the moment when you are invited to stop running from yourself and turn toward the life within you that is longing to be lived. It is terrifying, yes, but it is also the doorway to your liberation. When the persona cracks and the hidden self begins to emerge, the first thing many encounter is not joy or freedom, but fear. For what lies beneath the persona is not only the light of our true being, but also the darkness we have long avoided. This darkness is what depth psychology calls the shadow. All the parts of ourselves that we have rejected, repressed, or denied because they were deemed unacceptable. The shadow is not inherently evil. It simply contains what we have not allowed ourselves to see. It holds the anger we were told was dangerous, the sadness we were told was weak, the desires we were told were shameful. But it also holds our power, our passion, our creativity, our assertiveness, all the energies we exiled because they did not fit the image we were trying to maintain. Meeting the shadow is perhaps the most difficult and most transformative stage of this journey. It requires radical honesty, the willingness to see ourselves as we are, not as we pretend to be. This is no small task. The ego resists fiercely. It wants to maintain the story it has told about who we are. I am a good person. I am in control. I am not like them. The shadow threatens these stories by showing us everything we have worked to disown. Often, the shadow first appears in projection. We notice qualities in others that trigger strong reactions, anger, judgment, disgust, without realizing that these very qualities live within us. The person who cannot tolerate arrogance may have buried their own pride. The one who despises weakness may have repressed their vulnerability. Our reactions to others become mirrors, showing us what we have refused to face in ourselves. The work of integration begins when we stop running from these reflections and start asking, how does this live in me? This is not about blame or self-condemnation, but about reclaiming lost pieces of the self. Each time we acknowledge a shadow aspect, yes, I too can be angry. I too can be selfish. I too can be afraid. We bring it back into consciousness, where it can be related to, understood, and transformed. This does not mean acting out every dark impulse. To integrate the shadow is not to unleash chaos, but to bring balance. Anger, for example, when acknowledged, becomes healthy assertiveness and the ability to set boundaries. Fear, when faced, becomes caution and wisdom. Even envy can transform into inspiration, showing us what we secretly desire for ourselves. As we gather these pieces, something remarkable happens. We become more whole. We no longer need to maintain the exhausting split between acceptable me and unacceptable me. We can begin to live from a place of greater authenticity, because nothing within us must remain hidden. This integration brings with it a deep sense of power. Not power over others, but the power of being fully present, fully alive, fully ourselves. This stage of the journey is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. The shadow has many layers, and each time we meet a new layer, we are invited to embrace it with compassion rather than judgment. The more we do this, the freer we become. For when the shadow is integrated, it no longer controls us from the dark. Instead, it becomes an ally, a source of vitality, depth, and wisdom. And with each integration, we step closer to becoming a whole and authentic human being. When we have faced the persona, met the hidden self, and integrated the shadow, something extraordinary begins to happen. We start to live with a freedom and clarity that once felt impossible. This is what it means to live authentically. It is not about throwing away every role or disregarding every expectation, but about no longer confusing the persona for who we are. We begin to use social roles consciously when they are helpful, rather than being enslaved by them. Living authentically is first and foremost about our alignment. Our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions begin to move together in harmony. There is no longer a constant war between what we feel inside and what we show the world. We speak our truth more often, even when it is uncomfortable. We say yes only when we mean yes, and no when we mean no. This creates a life that feels clean, uncluttered, and full of integrity. Living authentically is also about courageous. Because when we begin to show the world who we really are, we will inevitably face resistance. Some people will be uncomfortable with our authenticity. They may prefer the old persona because it kept them comfortable. Friends, family, and colleagues might resist our growth, not out of malice, but because it disrupts the familiar patterns they have come to rely on. To live authentically is to be willing to disappoint others rather than betray ourselves. This kind of living brings both loss and liberation. We may lose relationships that were based on our false persona. We may outgrow environments that demand conformity. We may walk away from jobs, roles, or communities that no longer fit the person we have become. Each loss is painful, but it is also a clearing, a space where something new and more authentic can emerge. As we live more truthfully, we begin to experience a profound sense of vitality. We are no longer wasting energy holding up the persona or suppressing parts of ourselves. Our creative energy is freed, our intuition becomes sharper, and our decisions feel more guided. Life begins to feel less like a performance and more like a genuine expression of who we are. Relationships also transform. When we live authentically, we draw to ourselves those who resonate with our true nature, not just the persona we used to present. These connections are deeper, more nourishing, more real. We may have fewer relationships, but they are of higher quality, based on mutual respect, honesty, and shared authenticity. Living authentically also opens the door to what can only be called Azra's purposes. When we stop living for approval and start living from the core of who we are, we discover what we are here to give. Our work, our art, our service to the world flows from a deeper source, and it carries with it a sense of meaning that no external reward can match. And perhaps most importantly, living authentically brings peace. Not the fragile peace of keeping everyone happy, but the deep, steady peace of knowing that we are being true to ourselves. This peace does not mean life becomes easy. There will still be challenges, losses, and struggles, but we face them with the strength of a whole person rather than the fragility of a divided self. This is the ultimate reward of the journey, the freedom to live as we truly are, not as society demands, not as fear dictates, not as the persona once required, but as a full, integrated, living human being. And when we live this way, we give permission to others to do the same. Our life becomes a quiet revolution, an invitation for others to remove their masks and join us in the profound adventure of becoming real. This exploration of authentic living draws inspiration from depth psychology, existential philosophy, and the universal human journey toward self-discovery. The path from persona to authenticity is not easy, but it is perhaps the most important work we can do for ourselves and for the world.